Welcome to Blueprints and Barriers, Decoding Affordable Housing Policy in New Jersey. We are sponsored by Jersey First, and I'm your host, Lisa Allen. This educational series explores the evolution of New Jersey's affordable housing policy from Mount Laurel to the rollout of the fourth round and its impact on communities across our state. Our focus today is finance, redevelopment, and the legal process, the engines behind affordable housing development. Every housing obligation brings tough questions. How many units need to be built and where? What infrastructure has to be upgraded? And how do we balance growth with environmental limits and community expectations? And perhaps most importantly, who pays for it? Affordability in New Jersey is evasive, and planning for large-scale development is challenging, especially from a financial and planning perspective. That's where my two experts come in. First is Matt Jessup. He's a partner at MS&B LLC, where he specializes in helping municipalities solve complex problems through economic revitalization. He advises on public finance transactions and development projects, representing municipal, county, and authority issuers on hundreds of millions of dollars in bonds and notes. Matt is known for crafting innovative financing, bridging private sector investment with public sector tools like pilot bonds to advance redevelopment. He counsels municipalities on identifying opportunities, designating areas in need of redevelopment, and negotiating agreements with developers. His work centers on revitalizing underutilized properties to spur growth and affordability, and Matt holds a BA from George Washington University and both an MBA and a JD from Villanova University. Our next guest we're joined by is Mike Hanley. Mr. Hanley has devoted much of his career to consulting on billions of dollars worth of redevelopment projects in municipalities, including Jersey City, Newark, Weehawken, and Homedale. An innovator in the public finance community, he's led several groundbreaking transactions, including the use of redevelopment area bonds. At NW Financial, he plays a key role as both financial advisor and underwriter, serving a wide range of clients whose operations span affordable housing, solid waste, certificates of participation, and water and sewer utilities, as well as major development initiatives. He has served on several boards, most notably the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority, the Center of Real Estate Rutgers Business School Advisory Board, and the New Jersey Transportation Fund Authority. Thank you for joining me today.
It's great to be here.
Yes, I'm excited. What I really like about the two of you is you have complementary and contrasting experiences. You're different, but you also work together in the field of affordable housing. So what I would like to do is just kind of level set the listeners, to talk about what you do. So you're not a planner, you're not an engineer, but you're always answering my questions when I have questions about them.
We try.
Right? But you're a redevelopment attorney. So what does a redevelopment attorney do, and why do you know so much about so many aspects of other people's jobs?
So our job as redevelopment counsel is to walk a municipality through the redevelopment process, from designating a property as an area in need of redevelopment, to creating and adopting a redevelopment plan, which becomes the zoning for that redevelopment area, to negotiating the redevelopment agreement, the financial agreement, and other agreements that implement the project, the redevelopment project, that is outlined in that redevelopment plan. As a result, we work with a variety of other professionals on that municipal redevelopment team. The redevelopment area designation and the redevelopment plan both critically require a planner to both determine whether or not the property is an area in need of redevelopment, and then to create the zoning, for the property: height, density, setbacks, parking, etc. Then we transition to the next step, which is negotiating on behalf of the municipality with the redeveloper for the project itself, the business terms, the financial terms. So now we get to work with people like Mike and NW, who analyze the financial side of the transaction so that we can understand better, A, what the developer should be paying in taxes or a pilot, B, what the developer may be able to pay in additional public improvements, right, public benefit to the municipality, and get the municipality through that process, and then also through implementation of the project, basically all the way through to project completion.
Mike, you kind of touched on it. You're the financial engine behind some of these projects. So can you talk a little bit about what you do?
Sure. I mean, we're a part of that team, and all those planning decisions, engineering decisions, density decisions, types of redevelopment have financial consequences, positive or negative, to either side of the transaction. And we exist to help the municipality evaluate positives and negatives to all the other planning decisions they're making in the context of moving redevelopment forward.
So affordable housing is a complicated topic, and it's an ongoing topic. Redevelopment is often used in terms with affordable housing. For the listeners, because everybody comes from a different perspective, not everybody lives and breathes this every day, and they might just be walking into this conversation for the first time. Tell us what redevelopment is and how it differs, because what redevelopment is in Jersey City could be very different from what it is in Hunterdon County. So can you guys talk a little bit, and I'll start with you, Matt. What is redevelopment and what does that look like across the state?
Redevelopment is a power that municipalities have to take underutilized and available properties and turn them into something more productive, right? To satisfy a goal and a vision that the municipality has for that underutilized or abandoned property, right? In New Jersey, there are a variety of criteria that determine whether or not a property is an area in need of redevelopment. There's the obvious ones: an abandoned factory, right? An abandoned warehouse that hasn't been utilized for 20 years, vacant property. But there's also in New Jersey things like office buildings that have been, abandoned or no longer used, retail strip malls that are no longer popular and used. Surface parking is a deleterious land use. Surface parking in municipalities with a downtown, A, they tend to be large, B, they're impervious coverages, and C, they tend to be located on very valuable real estate in key downtowns. They're not a great use of the real estate. So all of those are circumstances where redevelopment can be used to take those properties and turn them into something that the municipality, in partnership with a developer, find productive and in keeping with the vision of the development of the overall municipality.
Where does affordable housing come in all of this?
Well, I think all housing across income brackets is less affordable. We know people are spending a larger portion of their income than they've ever spent before, whether you have a low income, a medium income, or a high income, because we have a supply problem. Depending on the studies, we're part of the New York region, and that region is anywhere between 500,000 and 800,000 units across income brackets short. We don't have enough for high income, middle income, or low income, and the market leans towards efficiency. Prices for rents are high, prices for purchasing homes are high, and that's a reflection of the supply problem. Fixing that only comes by creating supply, and it's of all types. I mean, more of the development that's happened has been for market rate housing, but we haven't reached capacity in market rate housing. Anyone who's recently tried to buy a home or tried to rent an apartment knows there are multiple bids on homes that are for sale. The velocity of filling up rental apartments is incredibly fast and being filled faster than they're being creative. So that affordability problem, housing scarcity, impacts the whole economy. Younger people that are entering the workforce or recently in the workforce having to spend such a high percentage of their income for housing crowds out other investments they could make in themselves as people, in their families, et cetera.
You and I have talked about this off camera, and because it's something I hear often, and I want you both to weigh in on this, because your answer is very interesting. I've heard, and even in one of the discussions I had with Senator Shapizi, some have voiced the concern that overdevelopment actually is causing, it sounds counterintuitive, but that it actually causes an increase in rents. Because when you do a ton of overdevelopment, you have a lot of these high luxury apartments that their rents are very high. So the homeowner that was charging $1,800 for a 2-bedroom now feels that he can keep up with the $5,000 rent or $7,000 rent that ends up being at these high luxury apartments. Would you say that that is a true equation, that almost too much expensive inventory can drive up unaffordability in other in other areas in the real estate market?
No, I don't agree with that as a concept. That acts as if the market leads the demand, and that's not what we've seen. We've seen New York City first, and then out to Brooklyn and the Gold Coast and out to the suburbs. It's coming from, as places fill up and become more expensive, people move to a place farther away that is less expensive, and that's how we've grown in concentric circles around New York City. It's, you know, it's not a choice that all of a sudden you put up a building and people show up. You put up the building because you know the market's there. People don't invest hundreds of millions of dollars on a lark. They do it because they know what the market is and the people are already there to rent or buy.
Matt, talk about any project that you've worked on. I mean, how many projects have you worked on in your career?
Too many to remember.
Okay. Give us an example of a project that really worked, that was a success in terms of redevelopment, and one that you learned from that maybe didn't go so well.
Well, I certainly think we learn from all of our redevelopment projects, right, and any work that we undertake. I think a lot of our projects are successful in the sense that we evaluate the vision and what the governing body is looking for, and we help them execute it. And sure enough, you drive around towns throughout New Jersey and you see the product, right? You see more people in that downtown walking, patronizing shops, stores, restaurants. You see what, both of us were involved with Asbury Park. Where Asbury Park was 10 or 15 years ago compared to where that is today, I would say a great part of that is the powers of redevelopment and the redevelopment projects that were undertaken there to turn Asbury and Long Branch and others into what they are today. Whereas if you had a conversation with people 15 years ago, people didn't want to go right to those areas. And so I think those are places where you see significant success, turnaround, revitalization. It doesn't have to be as big as something like that, or through redevelopment, we built the Prudential Center in Newark, right? Those are big scale projects. At the same time, you just have traditional projects in a core downtown that bring more people, that provide housing, particularly a need for those that have lived in town for 30 years, put their kids through high school, right? The joke about you see the high school graduation sign and then you see the realtor sign, right? Those residents want to stay in the area. They want to get out of their larger, more expensive homes into something more efficient, and there isn't really that product in a lot of places. These redevelopment projects are providing that avenue for those families and those people to stay in town, stay local, but pass their home down to that next generation who's going to come in and do the same thing and contribute to the health and the vitality of a municipality.
I think rentals are great for a variety of reasons, but I want to push into why are we not investing more in, when we build these projects, in home ownership? How can we fund them better or differently so that we can get a higher rate of affordable housing in those projects? So instead of 15% of affordable housing or 20%, how can we fund it where we're getting higher rates and investing in home ownership? So that people can actually start building generational wealth.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a complicated issue, but I think we have a point of view about home ownership that is traditional and perhaps untrue. You can gain wealth without owning homes, and it's not necessarily the best investment and best use of your money. Also, we're in a world where people's jobs are constantly changing and moving them around. You're not necessarily going to be in the place. In fact, most people are not in a place for 20, 30, 40 years at a time from when they start their job. So it's very costly to buy and sell homes every 3 or 4 or 5 years if that's what your career might lead you to do. Because you're accruing all the fees associated with those transactions. They take years to amortize. So there is plenty of room and need for both for sale and rental housing. And I don't think one is inherently a more beneficial way to operate, because when you buy a home, you tie up capital that could otherwise be invested in something else. And so you have an opportunity cost, and many markets have performed better than home ownership if we take a long view of markets generally.
Yeah, and I would sort of argue that we are achieving the things that you're talking about through redevelopment and through providing this sort of higher density housing, if you will. When, I live in the same town that I grew up in, so I've watched the homes that me and my friends grew up in and our parents owned as we left and they got turned over. They got knocked down and reinvested by building a brand new, much larger home, or substantially rehabbed and rehabilitated by a new family who comes in, right? I know I plan on having the roof at the very end, the air at the very end when I leave, and somebody else is gonna have to come in and, a new young family, invest in that home, build it up, make it what they want it to be. I mean, that's happening over and over again. And at the same time, that can happen because I now have an avenue to move into a place in my downtown, walkable, great restaurants, retail. I can go there, be happy where I am, and somebody else gets to come in and experience the benefit of schools and parks and playgrounds and invest in the home that will need either a tear down or a certainly substantial investment into that single-family housing, if you will.
What are the investment tools that developers are using in order to make these projects work? Because everybody says that money is tight, that it's really hard to fund these projects. So where does the money come from?
Yeah, so the high values and high rents have helped to get more projects developed, but we're also facing significant challenges in the context. Labor is more expensive than it's been. Materials are more expensive. Interest rates have gone up. So while the values of projects have increased, actually the difficulty of building them has increased more in recent, post-pandemic. It's been challenging and continues to be challenging. And that's where, in some circumstances, like you can have easy sites that require no assistance. Park the surface, there's plenty of land, you don't have to clean them up. They can be purchased at the right price. In other cases, Matt and I working in Asbury Park, that was very challenging. There was $80 million of sewers and sidewalks and road improvements that had to be done in order to be able to put the buildings on top of them, right? Because it just wasn't there. It was 100-year-old infrastructure. And creative solutions, the municipality had to work with the developer to get enough capital infused at the beginning to encourage the development that has now become successful.
When you said there was significant infrastructure improvements, the municipality paid for that or the developer paid for that?
Well, that's a complicated structure that was worked out there. In that case, the developer invested in the infrastructure up front, and the new taxpayer is then charged over time to reimburse the developer for that investment.
Talking about infrastructure, because that is one of the biggest topics or issues that people push back on, that around the state there are so many big buildings going in. I think that they want affordable housing, they don't mind development, they don't mind progress, but they feel that it's a lot of big box apartment buildings that are going up and do not necessarily add to the character of their town or the benefit, and then it puts a strain on the infrastructure. So I don't know.
Yeah, so I would jump in and say a couple of things. One, when it comes to like the aesthetic of the building, the design of the building, fitting in with the character of the municipality, that's where you go to that redevelopment plan, and the planner and the municipality that has a lot of say and can sort of dictate what they want the building to look like. It's really important. We're a colonial town, we're an industrial town, whatever the circumstances, we want the building to look this way. And certainly within reason, these developers can do a lot of things to tailor a building and make it look like it's been here for a long time, or that it fits with the fabric of the community. It is, of course, largely going to be filled with people who are already living in this community, right, who are just going to sort of consolidate and move in.
Maybe I can jump in with the concept that we discussed a little that's important. I mean, elected officials have an extraordinarily hard job because the goals and priorities that they have are in tension and people disagree with each other on what's important. We all want a really high level of service at a very low cost, right? And reckoning with that and making decisions inside of that is really hard. If we want more affordable housing, we need more housing, but we don't want more traffic or costs in our system. And there are no exactly right answers. Everyone's right, but you can't solve problems without change eventually. And you can turn on an ad for a Republican, a Democrat, like everyone's talking about affordability, what it costs to live in this state, what, that transit's a problem, that roads are a problem. One of the ways that infrastructure is paid for is through getting new people into the system. Otherwise, the increasing costs that come from aging water and sewer systems that are 70, 80, 90 years old, roads that have to constantly be repaved and expanded, if you don't get someone new to help pay for them, that's a constant increasing cost to the existing taxpayer. So, it's totally reasonable to say, I want my town to stay exactly the same. But if at the same time you care about affordability, you have to address some of those issues. Otherwise, you pay for them.
Yeah, and I think redevelopment is an opportunity to address some of those infrastructure issues, right? Yes, the project might come with more traffic. It might not, right? Each case is different. Where is it located? Central to a train station? What are the circumstances? But there are opportunities through directly on site and near site for the developer to improve water and sewer infrastructure. There's opportunities to generate additional revenue through the redevelopment project and through the redeveloper to pay for certain downstream infrastructure improvements. There may be a traffic light or a hawk light that you've wanted in your town for years now, 2 blocks away, to get kids safely across the street to and from school. The development can be a solution for that funding of that hawk light or traffic light or whatever the circumstance is. So I view redevelopment and this housing as an opportunity to assist with infrastructure. In one case, we literally built a brand new sewer collection system from scratch off a redevelopment project in a municipality that was 100% septic systems, right? There was no sewer infrastructure in the municipality. Not only did the redevelopment project deliver sewer for the redevelopment project, it also delivered sewer to thousands of additional connections throughout the municipality that had failing or dangerous to failing septic systems, and also to the downtown. And sewers in the downtown will just spur that downtown development even more. So I think there are opportunities that come along with redevelopment to solve for infrastructure issues that, as Mike pointed out, are going to come one way or the other. Where do we see the cost of getting PFAS, right, and other chemicals out of our water? I mean, that price tag only goes up and up and up every year, and that's going to get passed on to the existing customers. Period. End of story. The more customers you have, the less we're going to bear that cost. But that cost is coming one way or the other. So to Mike's point, the more you can grow the users in that system, the better off we all are.
Mm-hmm. And it's a function of how government works. Government is not primarily an incremental cost good.
Right.
It's a toll good. It costs an enormous amount to get up and running. And then incremental amounts of people don't hugely change the cost structure. Mm-hmm. So you typically benefit from having more people paying.
We could do a whole episode on pilot, and we're down to the last 3 minutes.
We can.
Just touch briefly on pilots, because in some cases they're great, and other cases they're a dirty word. So talk to me about the pros and cons of pilots in like a minute.
Well, I'll start by saying a pilot is a payment in lieu of tax, right? So in a redevelopment area, when you have a redevelopment project, one of the powers the municipality has to assist with the financial condition of the project, to help make more healthy the financial condition of the project, the municipality can grant a pilot. So in lieu of that redevelopment project paying its conventional tax bill, the way we all do as residents, it makes a structured payment in lieu of taxation. Typically, that pilot is a percentage of the gross revenues of the redevelopment project. So you are almost a partner in the development, in that the more successful the project is, the higher rents climb, the more gross revenue goes up, the the higher of the percentage that the municipality keeps as that pilot. The reason it's probably in some places considered a bad word is because unlike the traditional tax dollar that we all pay, where maybe 20 cents of that dollar goes to the municipality, 50 cents may go to the Board of Ed, the county, the fire district, the library, with a pilot, 95 cents goes to the municipality, 5 cents goes to the county, and that's how a pilot dollar is distributed.
Yeah, I mean, Matt describes it well. It is important to remember, though, that it's all additional revenue. And no government entity loses money in that process. It's all additional revenue that doesn't have to be paid by the existing taxpayer and is a benefit to them regardless of the pocket that it lands in.
Okay. In our last minute,
Yeah.
what do you see for development over the next 10 years in New Jersey? I'll start with you, Mike.
I started with him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a visionary. I mean, I think right now we have a path, but paths change over time. I mean, what we've seen is a world where highways sent us out to the suburbs. We did subdivisions and built suburban office, and that was very successful for more than a generation. Now we're seeing people live a different way, seeking more of a downtown experience, more walkability, more experiential retail instead of, traditional retail that we think of. But all these things can change in the future, and we have to be nimble and follow the marketplace and do what's best to create a strong economy here in New Jersey. One of the reasons it's expensive is that people are coming here because there are lots of jobs. There are lots of jobs here because we have a great workforce. And that's what we want to continue.
Right.
I mean, I see opportunity, right? Each of these redevelopment projects is an opportunity for the municipality to continue to evolve itself in the way that it wants to as it moves forward, while doing it in a fiscally responsible and really beneficial way to the municipality and the existing residents. The numbers Mike mentioned at the beginning, 500, 800,000, housing units short, that's going to take a long time to get through. So that might be very, much of the next decade. At the same time, we do see shifts evolve, right? A couple years ago, we were not talking about office buildings as a potential redevelopment area, right? Pre-COVID, no one was focused on office buildings. Now office buildings are, a potential redevelopment area, and there's a lot of them out there that need to be addressed. Strip malls, retail stores, not as much of a focus. Now maybe it is. So I think Mike's right also that what's going to happen in the next 5 years that's going to have us all turn around and say, here is a new opportunity to take whatever that type of property is and evolve it into something more beneficial for the town, taxpayers, the financial health of the municipality, and allow that evolution to continue to happen.
Excellent. We could keep talking, but we can't. So thank you so much for this discussion. I think pilots and growth, and there are a lot of components that we didn't get to touch upon. It's only 30 minutes. I hope that we can continue this discussion at some other point when we start extracting these ideas out. But thank you for coming today. I know that you guys are really invested in the future of New Jersey and really making it the best, most affordable state possible.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. And I want to thank you for joining us too. I hope you leave today with new insights and inspiration as to how affordable housing is funded and how redevelopment projects play a part in making that happen. Projects are expensive, so having the right partner along the way is critical. We look forward to seeing you on our next episode of Blueprints and Barriers, Decoding Affordable Housing Policy in New Jersey. I'm your host, Lisa Allen, and this program is sponsored by Jersey First. Thank you.